Presented exclusively by Mother's Polish.
Formula One fans, we're back. We're halfway through the week, and we got half the crew here today, but there's been too much action over the last 3 days since the race in Hungary. We had to bring you guys all the latest, all the juicy details about silly season, because we're in it. Last week on the pod, we talked about summer break. It doesn't seem like there's much of a break. Lots of news going on. Already moving pieces. The juggling act of the driver silly season, rumor season is here. So we wanted to bring you guys a quick kind of midweek episode. We call this episode 2.5. And we're just going to cut right to it. Cole Trickle. What the heck's gone on the last 2 days? We got Alpine, good, bad. What is going on?
Yeah, I feel like that's the $1 million question. So let's rewind a little bit. So Seb retires on Thursday. Then we go to Hungary and we have we have practice and all this time that these things are happening. So the story goes that Otmar and Fernando are having a basic chat in Hungary. And Fernando says that he's not signed any other contracts anywhere and that, he needs a little time, but he's pretty much, he needs a 10-minute conversation and he's good to go for a future seat. So like on the last podcast, I predicted that Fernando would come away with a 2-year contract at Alpine. And holy cow, we were all wrong. So Monday morning, Aston Martin, they shake the earth with a press release announcing Fernando gets a multi-year driver deal with the Silverstone-based organization starting next year. The news shocked everybody, especially Alpine. So there's lots of pieces to start here, and there's lots of different moving pieces. So Otmar and Fernando, go ahead.
Hold on. One thing I want to add real quick is I hope our listeners, and thank you for those that are listening, aren't keeping a tally of all of the predictions that we have absolutely butchered because we talked about Mercedes getting a win before a pole. Now we talked about basically, we didn't guarantee it, but we felt pretty good about Alonso extending his deal with Alpine, and we're 0 for 2. So we'll take it on the chin. We'll get better, and we'll move on.
If you're placing bets on what we do, just fade anything we're saying right now. Just go the opposite. We're 0 for 2, 0 for 3 at this point.
Yeah, there's a good reason why they say like gamble and drink responsibly. We're big proponents of all those, especially if you're taking advice from us.
100%. So let's get back to where we left off. So Alpine had offered Fernando a 1-in-1 contract. So meaning he can drive next season for Alpine, and if he does well again, he will get an additional year. Well, apparently in that process, after he tells Otmar that he needs a little bit of time to think about it, he goes and has dinner or some kind of rendezvous with his old friend Lawrence Strolovich, and he signs a deal with them. He swoops him out of Alpine's garage. No one sees it coming. And he signs it's all money. It has to all be money driven, because I don't know why else you would go to that team at this point. But he will partner with Lance for the next couple years at Aston Martin, trying to help rebuild that team.
Yeah, the memes that were going around about how he said he wanted to stay in a competing car and all that fun stuff, and the reality is Aston Martin is quite the opposite of that. So I'm sure he got a little bit of a Brinks truck full of cash, maybe a too good of a deal that you can't turn that kind of thing down. So what kind of dominoes? What is that gonna lead to, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was gonna say, I mean, one thing that, and Jordan brought it up, is that this is purely money driven, and obviously if you're going to Aston Martin, bottom 2 at this point. Fernando's had it all at this point in his career. I mean, he's been driving for what, Jordan, 16, 17 years, something like that. 2 world champions. And if contract numbers are right from the beginning, he's made almost $500 million driving an F1 car. So it could have been money. It could have been who knows what. He just may have been irritated at Alpine, whatever it was, just mind blowing. And hey, if it's all about the money, I mean, the only thing better than 450 million is 500 million at the end of the day.
I mean, he and Esteban definitely, they had it out at the start of the race. So I don't think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, but it definitely didn't help the cause.
So they didn't know before the race.
Supposedly, they did not. Alonso said nothing. He said, "We will talk about it. I've not signed any other deals anywhere." And then Otmar was under the impression that he was on a boat in the Greek Isle. And then, like literally the next day, Alpine found out from a press release from Aston Martin. Fernando didn't even tell him the savagery of Fernando Alonso of not even giving them the heads up. This is happening. Just a press release from Aston Martin. I can't to be a fly in the garage when they end up in Belgium in a few weeks, just to see how the reaction goes from everybody. It's going to be pretty spectacular.
He even trolled them on, I think it was Instagram. He posted a story about how he was supposedly on a beach or a boat in the Greek island somewhere. I mean, he just didn't give a you know what, and just said, calling their bluff, all that sort of stuff. So definitely, it would be fascinating to be a fly on the wall of all these conversations. Which leads me to just sort of a question, right? We're here in the U.S. and football is a big thing, and at least with a lot of our professional sports, they're sort of anti-tampering. You're not supposed to be able to talk to people until free agency happens. It seems like in Formula One, free agency happens all the time. To your point, Cole, about how, it just takes a dinner with Lawrence Stroll and he says, "We want you over here and here's the money. Here's what we're going to pay you." And, again, maybe it was too good and he had to accept it. So it's just, why are there so many changes mid-season? Or at least, rumors or whatever. I get rumors are good. It's good PR. It gets people interested. It gets us talking, gets the fans talking, exciting, wondering about who's going to be where. But it feels like there's so many moves that happen during the season. Why can't it wait?
That's a good question. I don't have a great answer for you, other than just getting everybody in the team ready, getting everyone ready for what's coming next, right? Because you don't want to. Valtteri was always so upset in Mercedes because he always had a 1-year deal and he always wanted to extend. So it's hard to feel comfortable and feel supported in your team when you get 1-and-1 deals. So I understand Fernando wanting to leave for getting a multi-year deal. That makes sense to me. But to go to Aston, I mean, I understand that they have all this money and that they're going to hopefully an up-and-coming team. But the rumor goes that the deal that he was offered with Alpine was less money than Esteban Ocon's deal next year. So he was going to make less than the driver who, he has 2 world championships. So I think he backed up the bank truck to Lawrence's backyard and he loaded up and rolled.
Yeah, that goes back a little bit to the Seb retirement and just a general philosophy that I have, right? I get saying things like this doesn't take away what the driver has done in their career, but is Fernando worth more than Ocon right now? Just pure driver, pure speed, pure results?
My answer would be yes. I'm also very biased. I mean, he's got 2 world championships, but he's 40. Right? Put that in perspective for a second. He's 40 and he's still elbows out pushing people off the track. I mean, so he's going to be 42 by the time he's done. It could be longer. We have no idea how long it's going to go. But at 40, he is still as aggressive as he's ever been. He's still as egotistical as he's ever been. It's just the way Fernando is. He burns almost every team that he leaves. He leaves it in a mess. But he will go down as one of the greatest drivers of all time.
Just one clarifying. He is 41. Happy belated
41,
birthday on July 29th, Fernando. So
happy birthday, Fernando.
Quite the present he got a couple days ago. I wouldn't mind getting a birthday gift that's from Lawrence Stroll.
Yeah, I mean, especially a Formula One car at 41 years old. That's tough to beat. But we got to dig into what happens next. So Fernando signs his deal. It now leaves everybody just assuming that Oscar Piastri, am I saying his last name right? I don't know. Piastri, thank you.
Let's just call him Oscar.
Oscar. It's easier that way.
Oscar
I'll butcher all their names. Oscar.
I go Oski P.
Oski P. I'm super okay with Oski P.
I like Oski P.
So Oski P. We all assume Oski is going to roll right into the seat because. So, a little background on Oski P. He is a Renault open wheel champion. He's a Formula 3 champion. He's a Formula 2 champion. And he's been the reserve driver for Alpine for a little bit of time here. So, we all just assume it's a perfect fit for him to slide into the seat. But what happens next? Fernando waited just long enough to commit to what he was going to do that he let Oski P's contract run out at Alpine. So we'll pause there for 1 second and leave a little cliffhanger, and let's rewind a handful of months. We're going to go back to, I don't have it in front of me now. March of this year.
March 12th. March 12th, I think. Yeah.
March 12th of this year. And Alpine comes out and says that they're going to lend Oski P out for, racing opportunities, with the intent that Alpine will get first dibs when he comes back. So he's opened the door. So a little more backstory into that backstory. Oski P is managed by Mark Webber, Multimap 22, ex Red Bull driver, or Multimap 21. Mark Webber he's an Aussie as well. So Aussie Mark Webber and Aussie Oscar, they work together trying to figure out currently where he's going to end up. The current rumor is that he's just going to step into McLaren because Mark Webber is in the process of getting Danny Rick out to get Oski P, and I love that we're calling him Oski P, in.
It feels like it has to be McLaren, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen with Lewis. Red Bull seems solidified at least for 2023. Ferrari's got 2 young drivers. I mean, unless you're, if you're Oski P, you're not going to go to Alpha or Aston or what. I mean, look, well, I was going to make the argument you'll take a seat if it's open, but clearly he's not. And what we've missed about all this is that Alpine came out and made an announcement that Oski P was going to be in the seat for 2023. And oh, wait a minute. An hour later, Oski P sends out a tweet that says, just because they announced it doesn't mean it's true. He didn't say this isn't true or I haven't signed a contract. He said, I will not drive for Alpine in 2023. To me, that was the biggest shocker.
The Aston, Alonso, Alpine Judgment Day, Oscars, he went radio silent, right? So they announced that that he's getting the seat. So we're all fired up, right? Oski P's in. He's in. We're let's go. And we look on his social media and it's radio silent. He doesn't say a peep. And so for an hour and 49 minutes, the F1 world's we're just waiting to see, are you going to acknowledge that you're on this team? So kind of what happens. And he comes out, it's an hour and 49 minutes later, and he flat out says, I will not be driving for Alpine next season. His exact statement is, I understand that without my agreement, Alpine F1 has put out a press release late this afternoon that I'm driving for them next year. This is wrong, and I have not signed a contract with Alpine for 2023. I will not be driving for Alpine next year. Gotta go McLaren.
So does he say that? The only thing you can think of is he's saying that he's already got a deal somewhere, or is he doing it because he doesn't want to be a part of? So say the Danny Rick thing, like you're talking about before, can't happen for whatever reason. Is he even still saying I'd rather still stay where I'm at to be able to have the McLaren seat in 2024, or is it? Do you think it's a done deal that he's in F1 in 2023?
I don't know. McLaren they're in a lot of legal dealings right now. Just in IndyCar, they're in legal issues with Chip Ganassi over one of his drivers. So I don't know. It makes the most sense to put him. I mean, it would be a dream come true for Lando Norris and Oski P to be teammates. But I don't know how they can. I don't know what they do with Danny Rick. I don't know if you move him to Formula E. I don't know if another Formula One team wants him. He's obviously on the decline. I don't know where he goes from here.
Yeah, I just want to add too. I got to give Cole a little bit of credit here because we all had our group thread going on, and I was at work, and he sent a message that was a picture of Oski P's Twitter profile, and it didn't say anything. I'm like, does this mean something? And his whole point was the radio silence speaks volumes, and I didn't catch it at first. And sure enough, an hour later, or whatever, an hour and 49 minutes later, Oski P said he will not drive, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So Cole, kudos to you. I'll consider that 1 and 2. You were all over it.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen often. I'll take that one.
Yeah, and speaking of, we're all assuming it's McLaren and Danny Rick's seat. I don't know if we want to spend a whole lot of time talking about what's going on with Danny Rick. It is Wednesday. It's almost Thursday, but it is Wednesday. I thought about introducing a segment called Washed Wednesday. Our group here on the Slipstream knows that I like to try to at least be real about when someone's time has passed. It's been Seb for a long time now that Seb's sailing off to higher seas. Hopefully, well, he thinks higher seas with global warming. But now my target in the crosshairs has got to be Danny Rick, right? I mean, if you just look at his performance, yes, he had the win last year, but outside the win, no other podiums. This year in 13 races, he's got a whopping 19 points. So it feels like, obviously, rumors with Oski P and McLaren, it's got to be the Danny Rick seat. And even though, Zach and Danny Rick have come out and said that they're committed to 2023, which all feels like backroom, BS, right? Things they have to say. I'm sure Danny Rick's going to fight for that seat, but it seems like that's squarely where, Oski P seems to be, putting his eggs in the basket.
I don't understand. I guess my thought is Alpine is number 4 in the constructors right now. Am I correct about that? They're definitely above McLaren. So I know McLaren is on the up and up, and I am a McLaren fanboy through and through. But I feel like to be a reserve driver and to turn down the number 4 constructor for a seat next year takes some balls.
Yeah, and I think, Matt, you asked this question. He has to know. There's something that he knows that we don't know. What's the saying? A bird in the hand's better than 2 in the bush. I mean, he feels like he's got a bird in the hand, right? He knows, and assuming we'll all know sooner than later, where he's going and why he was so adamant about that.
I mean, we discuss it all the time, and Jordan actually says it 10 times a day, but there's only 20 seats. There's only 20 seats in the greatest motor racing league in the world, and to turn down an automatic, no matter who the team is, seems insane, crazy, whatever it may be. You don't turn one down without knowing there's one coming up. You just don't do it. It doesn't make any sense to throw away. I mean, it's obviously his dream to be an F1, just like any other racing driver. So you're not giving that up for a wish and a prayer. There's a rock hard certainty at some point at the end of the rainbow coming. It just hasn't been announced yet.
Yeah, it's possible he ends up in a different seat. It is possible. I feel like I can't imagine he would take a step back and go to a Williams or McLaren is the only seat that makes sense for next year. Because he's definitely not getting an Alpine, which we all agree the gas man should go for. But you got to get rid of Danny Rick. So McLaren has to figure out where to put him. He's the face. He's been the face of McLaren, or he is a huge part of McLaren. So I think Formula E makes sense. You can put him in the Indy series as well. He obviously has a great presence in America. So, but he has no business being. No offense, Danny Rick, I love you, but you got no offense. You're done in Formula One. We got to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can separate the person and the driver, Danny Rick definitely seems like the one we'd all want to have a beer with, right? So he's been a fun personality in F1, and maybe he sticks around. Maybe second half of the year will be better. The one thing I just realized, I just looked this up. Oski P's only 21. He's already won Formula 2 and Formula 3. So clearly talented, clearly young. Landy's, is 23, I believe. 24, is that right? So they could have a pretty, assuming Oski P is going to McLaren, they could have a really talented young driver pairing for the next 5 years, 10 years, maybe. Pieces and parts move around a lot more frequently than that, but they could be set up here for some success.
Talking about how young Oski P is, and we talk about how old Fernando is. Here's a little random fun fact for you. Fernando Alonso made his F1 debut at Melbourne in March of 2001. Oski P made his debut on Earth in Melbourne in April of 2001. And there's never been an F1 driver who was not yet born when another driver was on the grid at the same time. I mean, Oski P's a young guy. And Fernando is old as dirt.
What would have made that stat kind of come full circle is that Oski P could have taken Alonso's seat. But he said thanks, but no thanks. Crazy.
I'm when we woke up on Monday morning after we did our podcast Sunday, I was so shocked about Fernando Alonso. And then I really feel like yesterday was such a roller coaster of emotion. I feel like I was on my phone all day long blowing everybody up about what was happening.
Yeah, there certainly has been no summer break. At least not in the news cycle. So Matt, I don't know if you have any other stats you wanted to share with either Oski P, Danny Rick, before I moved on to the other piece of news that ccame out. A couple pieces of news that came out the last day or two.
No, I mean, I think, one of the main things if we're going on Washed Wednesday is in 2020, Danny Rick's average place in a race was seventh. And then in 2021, it goes to 8.5. And then this year, it's now 12th. He's averaging ninth over the last 3 years. And it's not like he's at a bad constructor. It's not like he's gotten worse and he's fallen down. It's not like he started where he was at and then he just kind of trickled down in the constructor standings of trying to stay alive. He's still in a fifth place constructor, 4 points out of fourth place. And he's the reason they're in fifth place. He's the reason that they're not above Alpine right now. He's the reason he's not battling or at least closer to a third place point because he's not holding up his end of the bargain. And so at this point, like y'all said, we've got a part on him. And then the last thing on Oski P is that when he does arrive, he will be the youngest driver in F1. Yuki's the only one really close within a couple of years. Yuki's 21 right now as well. So he'll be the youngest. Yuki's 21, Landy is 22, Zhou is 22, and then you get up to Mick, who's 23.
I didn't realize Yuki was 21. Holy cow.
Yeah, last note on the stats. That with McLaren, Landy has 80% of their points scored this year.
Yeah, come on.
So if the driver pairing, ideally is 50-50, 60-40, they're both pretty close. They're obviously in equal equipment. That 80-20 spread is, in some lines of business, the 20% gets kicked to the curb. So it feels like more news may come in the next month or months, especially with McLaren. Speaking of news, the other sort of two highlights that have happened, there's probably more, but Williams came out, I believe yesterday when all this was going on with Fernando, they tweeted just, a little popcorn emojis, like something was coming. Everyone was entertained. The world of F1 was entertained with what was going on. But then Williams teased their own announcement for today. And speaking of Wash Wednesday or, maybe people moving around, there was a part of me that was not, I don't want to say hoping. I never hope someone loses their seat, but there was a part of me that thought maybe this is when they're going to give De Vries or someone else Latifi's seat, but that's not what happened. They announced a multi-year contract with Alex Albon beginning in 2023. So he's going to stick around with Williams for a couple more years. Any comments on that?
Happy for him. He deserves it. I wish he had a better ride, but Williams is pretty much an American constructor at this point. So I'm excited for him. I saw that they have, I cannot think of the guy's name now, to run FP1 in Coda in a couple months. But it's exciting for Williams. We all know Latifi's going to be gone soon, so I can't wait to see if Nick is going to get that other seat. But Alex and Nick could be a great pairing for Williams. I think that brings some credibility and some real speed than what they've had in the past few years.
Nick would be about a grandfather in F1 age at this point, though, so just want to throw that out there.
He's only got a few years that he'll be really relevant, I think, if at all.
He's 27 years old, and he is older. He's older than the average age in F1, where a driver starts his first race, gets his first point, gets his first podium, gets his first win, and wins his first championship in average age. He's older than all of those.
So what I'm hearing is he's already washed.
Washed Wednesday.
It's Wash Wednesday, baby. My dreams have come true.
The other thing I'd point out with him is that he's been, at least he started F2 5-6 years ago, and I don't believe he's there right now. Jordan, you could.
He's in Formula. He's a current Formula E champion.
So he's Formula E champion. So, but since he started F2 5 years ago, and not starting that one because obviously that's when he broke in, but over the last 4 or 5 years, 18 drivers' seats have been open that have been filled by non-current F1 drivers. He's been passed over essentially 18 times, and I'm not saying that he's a bad driver. We don't know until he gets here, and he's a Formula E champion, so he knows what it takes to win. But you've been passed over 18 times by multiple constructors. It seems a little odd he hasn't found a seat yet. That would be my only thing about him, is that there's something at least up on Nick, whether he goes to Williams or not. It just seems odd that it's taking this long for somebody who seems to be in the news cycle of the driver carousel year in and year out, that he just hasn't found a seat yet.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting data. If you're someone like Williams, how long are you going to invest in someone who's going to get their first seat or first shot at that age, right? And now it doesn't mean that they can't go on to success. It's just interesting when you compare it the history of at least recent F1 and the opportunity ahead for someone like Nick, or maybe the uphill battle that he'll have. So yeah, good for Alex. I know he had his little bit of a rough patch with Red Bull. It's good to see him get back in F1, sort of take advantage of it. I think he's been pretty good this year, and obviously Williams isn't great, but he does have 3 points. They seem to be very fast in a straight line, so if they can work on a little bit of their downforce, maybe they'll be in the points, or at least closer to the points week in and week out. And yeah, Latifi's got to go. I think if back to our math, the 80-20 with McLaren, it's 100% Alex Albon. So we'll see what happens with a couple of these other seats. So that's a lot of the news, was sort of the seats moving around. It only took 48 hours before things started flying in summer break. The other interesting sort of bit of news, I know Cole, you're close to this, and it's pretty exciting for us fans in America. We're all big football guys. But Sir Lewis Hamilton, I think it's Sir Lewis Hamilton Linguini, might get that one part wrong, has become a part owner of the new Denver Broncos ownership group. So that's pretty exciting. Tell us more about that.
Well, what's exciting for us, actually, our Slipstream headquarters. We have a headquarters here based in Colorado. So hopefully we'll see Lewis running around here time to time. But statement on Lewis becoming a part owner from Rob Walton, the Walton Penner Family Organization Group. We're delighted to welcome 7-time champion Sir Lewis Hamilton to our ownership group. He is a champion competitor who knows what it takes to lead a winning team. We know that, man. We get it. Well, I'm super excited he's going to be out here in Denver. But he's been out here for a little bit. He has a mansion out here somewhere. And Lewis, I know you listen to the podcast. I know you're a big Slipstream guy. I'll be hiking next weekend to try to find your house. So if you give me any kind of GPS coordinates or bearings at all, I will be snooping around with a couple buddies trying to find the Lewis Hamilton mansion in the Colorado foothills. But big news for the Denver Broncos. We got Russell Wilson. We got Lewis Hamilton. Condoleezza Rice is a part of it. It's all getting crazy out here.
One slight correction. So maybe we're 1 for 3. It's Larballister. Or Larballistier. I'm not sure the pronunciation. It's not Linguini, so that's my fault.
Touche.
But yeah, it's exciting news. I know that the Denver Broncos, I don't know why I'm blanking on the name of they had a ownership group that was there for quite some time. It was in the family, and they decided to put it up for sale. So clearly Lewis has made enough money to be a part of that ownership group, and exciting to have someone like him, and he's the greatest of all time in one sport, get involved in another sport here and help grow that brand. So we're excited for that.
Is this the first time that a knighted individual has business relations with Walmart? It just seems like two opposite ends of the world. Just
I'm going to say yes,
meshing well together. Yeah,
but I don't actually know if that stat can be found. Like you'd have to do some real digging, I think.
Well, we're saying it here. First time ever.
All right, that's fair. I'm good with it.
Matt, that brings up, and we could probably spend another half an hour on this, but That seems a little off-brand for Lewis now that I think about it. Do you think he's buying these baggy shorts and shirts and all these crazy outfits at Walmart? Or, is that more of a higher-end brand decision for him?
I think he has to mix it up. I mean, as a fashion icon, you find whatever fits your mood anywhere. And so I wouldn't doubt, who knows? Maybe this partnership leads to a Sir Lewis Hamilton line in the Walmarts.
I like it. I know you can find
forward for the common folk.
Yeah, you may not be able to find Tory Burch in a Walmart, but maybe like a Tammy Branch or something. Do you think they got that in there that might get the people moving?
Interestingly enough, Red Bull is actually sponsored by Walmart, which is not a sponsor you would assume is a big time Formula One sponsor. But yeah, so you probably get some Red Bull gear in Walmart now.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, there's so many topics we could cover, but our boy Austin was down at the Miami Grand Prix, and what was it? A hat was $100. You're not selling that hat at Walmart. So
he made it really clear to us. He said, we don't make enough money to be Formula One fans. Like, we can't afford to do this. And he sent me a picture of the pricing out there, and it was disgusting.
But we're going to Vegas, right?
Listen, Treasure Island has asked me to stop calling them until they take reservations in a few months. I've called them enough to say, hey, I'm looking for a room. And they said, sir, stop calling us. We're not accepting reservations yet. Okay, I'll call you next week.
Who do we have to?
Island, free rooms, please.
It's just I don't know. I just assume. No offense, Treasure Island. I just kind of assumed that Treasure Island was not the highest of end of places, and I could probably get a decent, affordable room for Formula One there. But I got a feeling they're going to be like $2,000 a night for every room.
Well, now we're definitely like getting free rooms. Come on, Cole.
Oh, I'm hoping for the Wynn hookup now.
Okay, yeah, we could step up to the Wynn. Yeah. I'd be okay with that.
We're upgrading here. But yeah, big. It doesn't feel like summer break because it feels like we've had more action in the past 72 hours than we do in the normal season. But I'm fired up for it. I love it. I enjoy all the rumors and the gossip, and I will definitely be harassing y'all over the next few days for everything that happens.
Yeah, it's fun to keep us all talking and chatting, and gave us another reason to come in with a midweek podcast. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 48, 72 hours. I know we're going to come back with you at our weekly podcast with breaking down a little bit more of the sort of winners and losers of 2022 so far, talk about some of the regulations and do we think they're working, dive into some of that data, but we wanted to hit you up and give you a midweek podcast. So we're going to consider this episode 2.5. But before we wrap up, Matt, I know you want to ask Cole one more thing.
One last thing. Maybe it's what you believe or what you want. What is the silliest, craziest thing you want to see happen from this driver carousel before this year ends out? What would be your hope that goes on?
I would like to see Pierre Gasly go to the home constructor in Alpine. I think it would be a lot of fun to see Mick Schumacher go to the German Porsche new Red Bull team. I would like to see. I don't know. Danny Rick's got to retire. I feel like there's so many moving parts here for this season. I'm gonna say Max wins the championship, no doubt. Mercedes beats Ferrari in the constructors, and I'm gonna say McLaren comes back and beats Alpine because Fernando is not gonna give a shit going forward. Sorry for the language.
Yeah, lots to look forward to. So thanks for tuning in. We'll keep it short and sweet for the midweek podcast. Lots more coming your way. We'll be back over the weekend or early next week with episode 3. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to check us out on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. All things Formula One coming your way. Have a good one.